would take a seat, please, I would like to call this meeting to order. Thank you very much. All right. Good morning, everyone. Here we are, almost at the end of another school year. Sometimes it just feels like it goes by in a blur. First part of the meeting, before we get started, we've had some elections on campus. And I would like to, first of all, recognize and welcome Abby Canella. Abby, you would stand. She is our newly elected student representative to the board. And Nate Hazen, who is our newly elected Student Governance Association president. Welcome, both of you, and we'll look forward to working with you next year. Congratulations. Next, I would like to recognize Shadi Bapkari. Shadi has actually helped set the model for what I would consider a model of collaboration between the SGA and the student representative to the board. We have absolutely appreciated your voice in the Student Affairs Committee and everything that you've done for the university. All right, next one's a little tougher. Bear with me. Xavier Williams.
Don't start. Don't start. All the
Right. So Xavier was actually elected by his peers to represent them to the board, not once, but twice. So he has served 2 consecutive years to the board. He has brought enthusiasm, commitment, leadership, passion, thought leadership, and has been a very effective voice of the students to the board. You have been a change agent for this university. When Norman Jones left, I know you were very worried that he had set a high bar, and he had. My friend, you blew past that bar and have set an even higher one. Some people bleed purple. I truly believe your heart is purple. You have made a difference by being here. We will look forward to watching your journey as it unfolds, and we'll be cheering on all your successes in the future. Thank you so much. That was part of the hard part. All right, so now into the body of the meeting, the consent agenda. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes for the February 10th, 2023 public comment meeting?
Motion approved.
Second. Thank you. All those in favor? That's okay. All right, next into the committee reports, academic excellence, Mr. Greg Keeler.
Good morning. The Academic Excellence Committee heard the following reports at our meeting on April 20th. We had the divisional update from Provost Heather Coltman. She shared recent hires. David Kirkpatrick as the Executive Director for the Madison Center for Civic Engagement, and J.Y. Zhao as the Executive Director for the Center for Civic Engagement. She also provided general update on fall of 2023 instructional faculty hiring, and most of those hiring and searches are wrapping up soon. The provost reported that an email highlighting academic affairs faculty and staff achievements goes out weekly, and issues of that, if you're interested, are on the academic affairs website. Provost Coltman concluded with comments related to the condemnation resolution recently passed by the Faculty Senate, in which she acknowledged feelings of discontent among some faculty and emphasized the uncertainty that frequently accompanies institutional change. She highlighted a series of academic affairs achievements that have contributed to the natural maturation of the university, and reaffirmed her office's commitment to collaboration, transparency, and shared governance. Vice Provost Rudy Molina and the transfer advising and student success team from University Advising talked to us about the Bridge to Madison program. It's a pilot initiative, an innovative collaboration between JMU and Blue Ridge Community College that launched in the fall of 2022 with 27 students in the first cohort. The program gives a select group of students who were waitlisted for admission to JMU an opportunity to attend their first year of classes at Blue Ridge while living here on campus at JMU. Students live the life of a first-year JMU Duke while strengthening their academic skills through their community college enrollment. And we heard from a first-year student in the program, Nicholas Yenero, who highlighted the challenges and successes and the early outcomes and the next steps for him of this first-year pilot program. And I think I recall that we heard, Madam Rector, that about half of the students enrolled in that first cohort will be full-time JMU students next year. Jennifer Campbell, the Assistant Vice President for Academic Initiatives and Planning, shared an overview of the Academic Affairs Strategic Plan. This includes a review of the mission, vision, and values, and 3 strategic goals created by the Academic Affairs Strategic Planning Committee, as well as the objectives and key performance indicators and action items developed to support the division's progress towards achievement of their goals. This strategic plan is the division's first comprehensive strategic plan, developed through a large-scale collaborative process that involves faculty and staff from throughout the division. Colleges and other units are continuing to align their work with the strategic plan, and the plan will be reviewed and updated annually. The division will engage in another strategic planning process after the next university strategic plan process is completed. We had a college spotlight. We heard from the Honors College. Dean Bethany Blackstone briefed the committee on the philosophy, history, and status of the Honors College. The college currently serves more than 1,100 undergraduate students pursuing majors in all academic colleges with an interdisciplinary minor curriculum and opportunities for enrichment and engagement. The Honors College saw a 40% increase year over year in applications from incoming first-year students for fall 2022 and fall 2023, receiving more than 2,500 applications for this fall. And Dean Blackstone shared that she didn't believe that the increase in numbers was directly related to the Common App, as the large number of applications have continued to increase. Griff Splan, a 2024 biology Bachelor of Science student, shared his experience in honors courses and as president of the Madison Honors Leadership Council and how they've shaped his JMU experience and prepared him for postgraduate success. We had revisions to the faculty handbook to review, the multi-phase review and suggestion process that's used by faculty and the faculty senate, the speaker, the provost, and President Alger for revisions to the 23-24 faculty handbook was shared with the committee by Michael O'Fallon, Associate Vice Provost for Academic Affairs Policy. 22 final recommended changes were proposed to the committee. All were part of the faculty employment policies and procedures section of the handbook, and I believe they were shared with everyone here in your packet. Madam Rector, on motion from the committee, I move that the full board approves these changes to the faculty handbook.
Thank you. Is there any discussion about this committee report? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you very much.
Next, that was actually the motion for the faculty
That
handbook.
was just that faculty.
Oh,
Sorry, I have more to
you
say.
have more to say. All right, continue then, please.
Almost done though. Finally, we heard from the faculty senate speaker, Kathy Ottwalter, provided the speaker's report and shared a synopsis of recent senate meetings and an update of resolutions and motions under consideration and approved by the members. The speaker also highlighted a variety of activities and achievements, as she always does at different parts of the university, this time in philosophy and religion and educational foundations and exceptionalities, including faculty and student-led exhibitions, presentations, and community engagement. The meeting agenda 218, Madam Rector, I move the report of the Academic Excellence Committee be accepted.
Thank you. That's a great feeling. May I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, now I will ask Mr. Wellborn, Craig, advancement and.
Good morning, everyone. The Advancement Committee heard the following reports at our meeting on April 20th, 2023. We started our meeting learning about everyone, what they wanted to be when they grew up, or what they had the opportunity, what did they want to do when they grew up, when they were kids, and what they wanted to be. Learned that a lot of members of the committee wanted to play for the Philadelphia Eagles. Afterwards. Afterwards, we received a fundraising report for Jared Lowry, reported that the Duke Club has had $4 million in donations and that they are currently ahead of where they were last year. Jeff Gilligan shared the giving update for JMU that it's reached 22.2 million for the fiscal year to date, and they have 104 closed major gifts. Next, we heard a vice president's update from Nick Langridge, where he gave an update on the new big ideas working group and highlighted conversations with the federal Duke's alumni affinity organization in the capital area. Mike Battle, who was a previous board member, was at the meeting, shared a lot of the great things that they're doing, where they have a lot of people that are following them now on social media, and that group is growing with the federal Dukes. Next, we received an alumni marketing update. Chris Myers presented an overview of how the university's advertising strategy expanded the university's reach in connecting with future Dukes. Next, we heard a spring update from Whitney Seiko, where she reviewed recent updates and events at JMU, as well as including a center dedication, alumni awards, choices, and the Women's for Madison summit that will be taking place. Afterwards, we received an update on the Madison Trust from John Meck, where he reported on the 10th annual Madison Trust and University event that boosted a total giving of $1 million. Through the hybrid format, it recorded 31 donors who committed $155,000 towards 10 innovative projects and ideas. Afterwards, we received a government relations update on strategies given from Caitlin Reed, where she provided updates to the committee on the engagement with government relations, outlining opportunities as they work together with our legislators. Afterwards, we went into closed session and the meeting adjourned at 4:23. So, Madam Rector, I move the advancement report be accepted.
Thank you, Mr. Wilbur. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those.
Just oppose the Eagles.
Yeah, I was there. All those in favor? Any opposition? Thank you, Mr. Wilbur. All right, next up, Mr. Lynch, athletics.
Yes, good morning. The Athletics Committee heard the following reports of the meeting on Thursday, April 20th. We started with a sports update by Mr. Bourne. JMU teams have compiled a 196, 95, and 9 cumulative record for a 67% winning percentage. Head basketball coach Mark Byington was named the Virginia State Coach of the Year. Men's and women's basketball combined for the most total basketball wins in program history with 48 wins. Women's basketball claimed the league's regular season title and tournament championship. Kiki Jefferson was named Conference Player of the Year and Tournament MVP. Swimming and diving went 5-3 in dual meets and narrowly finished second in its first CCSA championship meet. KR Lee was named the CCSA Diving Coach of the Year, and Maddie Yeager named both Female Diver of the Championship and Diver of the Year. Women's golf finished 8th in the Sun Belt Championships. Women's tennis sits at 12-7, including 8-1, and second place in the Sun Belt, while men's tennis holds a 12-9 record and were the 7th seed for the Sun Belt Championship. Softball is 23-13 and is 5th in league play, while baseball is 20-15 overall and currently 11th in the Sun Belt. Lacrosse, women's lacrosse sits at 14-1 and earned at least a share of the regular season title in the AAC. Mr. Bourne commented that the transition to the Sun Belt in sports has, been very, very successful. The next report that we heard was the Title IX participation report. Results were shared from a recently conducted Title IX report, which acknowledged that JMU continues to meet the Title IX requirements relating to providing proportional participation opportunities for males and females and complying with standards regarding providing financial assistance and scholarships to student athletes. Recommendations included devising a plan for a fueling zone in Memorial Hall and adding an additional strength and conditioning coach when the Convocation Center is reopened. JMU was applauded for its operational efforts and how well it's transitioned to the FBS level. Our next report was the Student Athlete Leadership SAAC update, the Duke's Lead Program. The Duke's Lead Programs continues to focus on community service and the need to better connect with those in the surrounding community. JMU Athletics has set an aspirational goal to be in the top 5 for community services initiatives within the Sun Belt Conference. Efforts continue in advocating for DEI within athletics and partnering with local businesses. Redshirt sophomore Dimitri Turner of men's soccer will serve as the new SAAC president. His platform goals include creating more peer opportunities and increased campus and community engagement. The next update we heard was from Mr. Bourne on the NCAA waiver update. JMU is continuing to work through the NCAA waiver process, which requires an institution seeking to reclassify from FCS football to FBS football to go through a 2-year transition period. JMU is petitioning to make the transition in this year. This is a bureaucratic process, and JMU expects to receive a final decision by the end of April. We next turn to the development update. The total number of Duke Club donors is 4,250, with an aspirational goal of reaching 5,000 donors by the end of the fiscal year. That, even at the 4,250, that's a record. So that's a great goal to have. The annual fund is up 489,000 from last year. Overall fundraising is up 867,000 from last year. The Duke Club has currently met 67% of its annual fundraising goal of 4.3 million for the fiscal year. And the meeting adjourned at 3:50 p.m. Madam Rector, I move that this report be accepted. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lynch. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion about this report?
I think that John would say a word about attendance.
Oh, yes, and I think it's been, there was probably in the last 3 or 4 meetings, we've talked about getting an attendance policy implemented, that if a student athlete has to miss a class due to, representing the school at a game or a match somewhere, that they aren't receiving any, demarks or any type of penalty for missing that class. And that is in the process of being approved. It's something that's done. Okay. That's something the committee has talked about in the last 3 meetings. And we also understand that student athletes will have the opportunity for early registration as well.
That's
Okay.
Yes, John, Jeff is shaking his head.
Okay. Yeah. So those are 2 things the committee's focused on.
I do believe that the handbook was updated to reflect that policy.
Yes.
It
It was,
will be.
it will be what. But those are two really good developments. I think
Yeah.
the entire committee shared in the support for both those initiatives.
Right. Yeah. Okay, very good. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, thank you. Mr. Falcon, audit risk and compliance.
Thank you, Madam Rector. Good morning, everyone. The Audit Risk and Compliance Committee met at 2:45 p.m. on April 20th, 2023. The minutes from the February 9th, 2023 meeting were approved. April Cassida and Nick Nonamaker of the Auditor of Public Accounts, also known as APA, presented the results of the JMU financial audit for the year ended June 30th, 2022. Ms. Cassida stated that they issued an unmodified opinion on the university's financial statements. There were no material weaknesses or significant deficiencies in internal controls. There were no instances of non-compliance or other matters required to be reported. And just as a matter of personal privilege, this is my third year in a row working with the APA, and they are excellent and very professional, and I just want to thank them for everything. Dr. Jen Grossman Leopard, Director of Student Life, provided an overview of JMU's response to Adams Law, effective July 1st, 2022, which requires in-person hazing prevention training for all potential new organization members, current organization members, and advisors of certain student organizations. Matt Bingay, WMRA Station Manager, discussed the results of the WMRA financial audit, which was conducted by PB Mayer's CPAs. An unmodified opinion was issued on the statements for the year ended June 30th, 2022. The audit is required because the station receives funding from the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, and that station is licensed to the JMU Board of Visitors. Becky Holmes presented a draft audit plan for 2023-24 for discussion, and she also reviewed mandatory disclosures required annually by the Institute of Internal Auditors. The mandatory disclosures include organizational independence, impairments to independence or objectivity, quality assurance and improvement programs, disclosure of any non-conformance with standards, and resolution of management's acceptance of risk. The committee went into closed session to review and discuss internal audit reports issued since the last meeting, and the meeting adjourned at 4:03 p.m. Madam Rector, I move the report of the audit committee be accepted.
Thank you very much. Is there a second? Second. I would also like to commend the audit committee themselves. This particular meeting, I opened their committee package and it was about 185 pages of audit reports. And so thank you very much for taking the time to read through that. I think the reports were all very good, but it was a lot.
Thank you. I appreciate
Thank
that.
you for doing that.
It was a heavy lift, but important work.
Yes, thank you. All right, any other comments? All those in favor? Any opposition? So moved, thank you. Mr. Rothenberger, Finance and Physical Development.
Thank you. Good morning.
Let's see if we have one.
Yeah, this is one of my longer ones here. The Finance and Physical Development Committee heard the following reports at the meeting on Thursday, April 20th, 2023. The last meeting minutes were approved. First up was the financial review, and the university's revenue and expenditures were appropriate for the period July 1st, 2022 through February 28th, 2023 of the fiscal year. The 2021-2022 audit review, the committee was provided with an update on the university's financial statements audit. The university received an unmodified opinion on the statements. The university did not receive any written comments on the audit. The 3 written comments received from the 2021 student financial assistant audit were cleared. A general assembly update was then given. The House and Senate have not agreed on a budget. 2,800 bills were filed in the 2023 General Assembly session. 21 passed with a direct impact to JMU. The government relations team is preparing for an unprecedented amount of turnover of members in both the House and the Senate in 2024. JMU continues to progress in partnership with Rockingham County Public Schools towards approval of a JMU lab school. Next was the 6-year capital plan. The 6-year capital plan is required by the Commonwealth and covers the 2024, 2026, and 2028 biennium. The 6-year capital plan is requesting $813,908,700 in general funds and $205,644,300 in non-general funds. Committee approved the plan, and Madam Rector, on motion from the committee, I move the board approve the 6-year capital outlay plan.
Thank you. Is there a second? I don't need one.
You
Is
don't
there
need
any,
one.
I don't, see, that's what I said. You and me, we got through this. Is there any conversation about that? All right, all those in favor? Any opposition? So moved.
Next up was the 2023-2024 proposed tuition and fees. The proposed tuition and fees for the 2023-2024 academic year and the 2023-24 summer sessions were presented. Factors affecting tuition and fees such as employee compensation, benefits cost, unavoidable inflationary costs, and unfunded mandates were discussed. The tuition and fees presented for the 2023-24 academic year and 2024 summer sessions were approved by the committee, and the committee recommends approval by the board. Tawana will present the 2023-24 tuition and fees later in this meeting.
No.
Next up was the 2023-2024 proposed budget review. The proposed university budget, which assumes will be roughly $4 million, reflects a total increase of $38.9 million or 5.7% over the current budget. The committee approved the proposed 23-24 university budget and recommends approval by the board. Tawana will give a presentation on the proposed budget later in this meeting. We then went into closed session, and the committee met to discuss real estate matters. No action was taken by the committee. Madam Rector, I move the report of the Finance and Physical Development Committee be accepted, please.
Thank you. Is there a second? Second. Any discussion? All those in favor? Any opposition? Okay, thank you very much. Next, Governance Committee, Mr. Grass.
Thank you, Madam Rector. Good morning, everyone. The Governance Committee discussed the following items at the meeting yesterday on April 20th, 2023. The committee reviewed the agenda for the board retreat and looks forward to everyone's participation tomorrow. Directions to dynamic aviation are on the board agenda information. Nick Langridge and Chris Oram shared how information from the retreat will support the big ideas that will be part of the upcoming campaign and strategic plan. The committee has developed a procedure for presidential leadership succession. To provide clarification in the board manual, the committee recommends the following change. This is the change that we previewed by the board in our last meeting. On motion from the committee, I move the following change to the board manual, Article 9, Rights and Powers, Section A.2c. In case of the president's incapacity because of disability or death, be replaced with, in the case of a planned or unplanned departure of the president. Can I have a second?
You don't need a second. Yeah, please go.
Any discussion?
Discussion. All right, all
At
those.
least I'm not allowed. That's all I care about. I'm not allowed.
Is there any discussion? All right, all those in favor of the manual change? Any opposition? All right. So
Thank you.
moved. Thank you, Mr. Grass.
So,
Continue.
thank you very much. Appreciate it. The committee spent time reflecting on the work of the governance committee to provide insight to the next members of the committee. And lastly, the committee discussed the idea of board liaisons. Be more information to come as we develop this more in the fall. Madam Rector, I move the report of the governance committee be accepted.
Can I have a second for this, please?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? Right, thank you. Ms. Tompkins Johnson.
Yes, good
For
morning.
the Student Affairs.
Yes, thank you. Student Affairs Committee heard the following reports and had following discussion at our meeting yesterday. We actually started off our meeting just mentioning the strategic priorities of the university, and I'll just say them here: being a change at work and in the world, advancing DEI initiatives, attracting the students of tomorrow, strengthening support and infrastructure. And we mentioned, and we're all in it, the board members are all in agreement that the student affairs is sort of the heart of the university, and just appreciate the ways that they support the strategic initiatives of the university. They search and explore innovative collaboration opportunities, strengthen support and resources for students centered around health and well-being, and guiding students to belonging on campus, taking care of their, residential needs, just so integrated in their lives here. We received the student affairs update from Dr. Tim Miller. Unfortunately, once again, Dr. Miller led us in a moment of silence, called for a moment of silence, held for the 2 lives lost in the recent off-campus incident, and shared how as a community we will persevere through hate, confrontation, and violence. I just noted that we have 4 official committee meetings, because we meet quarterly. 3 out of 4 of those meetings, we acknowledge some type of violence in our communities. So we hope and pray that that will desist. Dr. Miller highlighted upcoming graduation celebrations and ceremonies for communities on campus, as well as accomplishments from campus working groups and committees. We received our Student Government Association report from Shadi. She reviewed recent student outreach where she used social media efforts to uplift student organizations and campus happenings. She highlighted the work of SGA initiatives, co-committee work, and programming in the upcoming leadership transition. Of course, you met Nate Hazen. And he's actually pretty much a regular at our meeting, so we appreciate that he won that election. We heard the report of our student representative through the board. Xavier shared with the committee a summary of his accomplishments and work completed throughout his 2 terms as student representative to the board. So we very much enjoyed that. Lots of accolades towards Xavier and Shawty at the meeting yesterday. He did conclude with final words for board members to consider as he prepares to complete his term, and he formally introduced Abigail to us at yesterday's meeting. He also, I'm not sure if we mentioned this yesterday, but he did prepare a document, a very detailed document that he had reviewed by administration, and he had Laura and I look at it to pass on to Abby. So sure, that's going to be a big help. We very much appreciate the hard work that you put into that. Our spotlight was on career experiential learning and transition. The leadership team that part of the division reported on specific programming focuses in their individual departments. The team shared areas of interest, including service learning, implementation at JMU, sense of belonging developed during orientation, and the ways the university engages employers to maximize internship and job prospects for students. We just found it really amazing that one of the things that they do is they have practice interview sessions, and they actually have employers who are willing to come in and do practice interviews with students. And then we heard from the student panel from Career Experiential Learning and Transition. We had Joy Johnson, who's the Communication Studies, Haley Duarte, Health Sciences, and Jameson Blight, Health Sciences. And they shared their experience with creating belonging on campus through orientation roles, connecting with employers and what they are looking for in roles after college, and the value of volunteer service learning opportunities. So we really saw the spectrum, right, from orientation, their experiences here, and then career advising. And again, I'll say this here for everyone here in any public as well, but that career work and support starts as freshmen. So we'll try to get them integrated into that experience as soon as possible. With that, Madam Rector, I move the report of the Student Affairs Committee to be accepted.
Thank you. Is there a second? Second. All those, any discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed? Okay, so, next up, President Alger's report.
Good morning, everybody.
Morning.
Great to be here with you in the home stretch of the academic year. It's hard to believe that we're already in late April. I want to begin before getting to the formal remarks. I know we have some students here that are actually graduating in a few weeks. Would you guys stand so that we can acknowledge all of you that are graduating? In here. So I want to begin, now if we go to the next slide, first with the admissions update. It's that time of year. If you've been around campus, you know we've had some big choices events. We've had lots and lots of students apply, and now, of course, we're trying to get them to come to JMU. You see the statistics up there, over 37,000 applications this year, which in just 2 years is a 68% increase in the applicant pool. That is truly, truly extraordinary. And I won't go through all the details there, but in particular, you'll notice that 46% of the applications came from out of state, which of course is a very healthy number. And you see underrepresented students, 34.4%, 21.5% of the applicant pool being first generation. Next slide, John. This slide shows you some of the trends the last couple of years. And obviously total applications, as I mentioned, have gone way up. But in every category, look at the out-of-state numbers almost doubling, students of color almost doubling, first-generation students up several-fold in just 2 years, and finally, international students rebounding. Of course, the pandemic really hit that population hard, so very exciting trends to see in the applications. And how are we actually doing? Well, here is the update on the first-year class, and these numbers obviously change every day as we get more acceptances. But you see with May 1st being the key date to put down your deposits where we are with 2945 in-state students, 1156 in terms of out-of-state students. And you see the demographics so far of the students coming in. One trend that hasn't changed much in recent years, guys, we have some work to do. The male-female ratio is still, as you see, 59 to 41, but very excited to see those very healthy numbers. We fully expect to meet and exceed our targets here. Transfer deposits are also quite healthy. Okay. Now, turning to some other substantive things, a lot going on this time of year, starting with something that may seem sort of bureaucratic and mundane, but it's actually incredibly important to the university, and that is, of course, our decennial review by, and it's quite a mouthful, SACCOC, which is the Southern Association of Colleges and Schools Commission on Colleges. That is our regional accreditor that every 10 years does a very comprehensive review of the university. They have all sorts of topics that they look at, governance and academic programs and initiatives, student services, financial and administrative management of the university, distance education, offsite programs. It's an extremely, extremely complex and thorough process. And for the second consecutive time, we had how many recommendations? 0, none. That is truly extraordinary. There are very few colleges in the United States that achieve that level. And there is a consensus, by the way, that SACCOC is the most rigorous of all of the regional accreditors. And I can second that motion, having served myself as a site visit chair a number of times, including just 2 weeks before we had our own site visit, and many others at James Madison University have served on these committees as well. It's a peer review process, which is really important in American higher education. I do want to mention as part of this, we have a quality enhancement plan. Some of you that have been around for a while remember the last one we had was the Ethical Reasoning and Action Program, which has been very successful and now incorporated across the curriculum. This time around, the focus is on an early student success system, which is designed to improve student retention and to identify and then close equity gaps across the university, taking advantage of a lot of data that we now have. This is not something that you just worry about every 10 years. We actually have a committee of folks that are constantly staying on top of all of the different standards which change and get updated every year to make sure that we're working on compliance and prepared for that next visit that comes up very quickly. And I do especially want to acknowledge two of our board members who participated in this process on behalf of the board. Mary Beth and Laura, thank you so much for meeting with the visiting team. One of the things that they look at is board governance and how the board works with the university. So we really appreciate your leadership and perspectives. And I know the visiting team was very impressed with what you both shared. So thank you both. Okay, turning to some other developments. One of the big issues right now in Virginia that we've been talking about with SHEV, our state council of higher education, is the need for more students to have practical work experience before they graduate. This is a big undertaking that they're talking about, trying to get every student that opportunity. Some programs have it built in, nursing, teaching, for example. Others do not. But you see here that we got a $250,000 grant from what's called the VTOP initiative, Virginia Talent and Opportunity Partnership, which is funded by the General Assembly. And it will help us to expand paid and credit-bearing student internships and other work-based learning opportunities in collaboration with employers here in Virginia. You see that we're partnering with a number of parts of Virginia to work on this initiative to give our students that kind of experience. So we're very excited about that. And I would continue to encourage board members who have either you work at corporate entities or other types of businesses that might hire students as interns, or you have friends that do, please keep in touch with us because we are trying to provide as many of those opportunities as possible, as you heard mentioned out of student affairs. Okay. Another way that we think about student engagement, in addition to internships, is across the board with their experiences here with engaged learning, community engagement, and civic engagement. Most of you know these are the three cornerstones of our strategic plan that I've been talking about for a decade plus now. And I was very excited. We have a program called the Presidential Engagement Fellows that I think most of you are familiar with, where students that have recently graduated from college have the opportunity to work with us, engaging in a year of public service on issues relevant to the university and our society. And one of those Presidential Engagement Fellows actually came up with the idea to have a student engagement symposium that would showcase how students are doing this kind of work in their own words. Jet, I think I saw you over here. Would you stand so that we can acknowledge you and the great work that you did? Jet did an extraordinary job working with a lot of people to put this together. And we've already decided it's going to be an annual event. So you're going to have to just keep coming back, Jet. Thank you for your leadership. It was extraordinary. Now I want to turn to some other individual recognitions, first with some students that have done some great things and will be doing great things soon. Starting with the Virginia Governor's Fellows Program. A lot of you know this program where students talk about real world experience, getting to work with the governor's office and learning about the state legislative and executive process. So Maya Wilcox, I think, is with us. Maya, would you stand? Maya. Maya, you see, is a public policy and administration major, as well as an honors interdisciplinary studies minor with an emphasis in service and civic engagement, and has also served as an honors college teaching fellow for fall 22. So Maya, I know you will represent us well in Richmond, and we're just thrilled and delighted to have you representing JMU. Thank you. And I think Xavier, you've done that too, right? So we've got a good track record in Richmond. All right, now turning to the national level, a similar recognition. Reggie Wilcox. Reggie is here. Would you stand? The Newman Civic Fellows is a national program that brings together student leaders from across the country. Each campus gets to nominate one, and it really is to focus on community and civic engagement leadership. And they select people, of course, who've already demonstrated a real aptitude for that. You see that Reggie is a junior integrated science and technology major with a concentration in environmental sustainability. Reggie's also received an NSF grant for a project focused on innovative pedagogical research, and is an honors minor, and I like this, currently working on a capstone project you see to restore damage caused by erosion on the riverbanks out at the JMU farm. If any of you have been up there off of Port Republic Road, a beautiful place, but this is one of the issues that we are dealing with. So thank you, Reggie, so much for your leadership on that front. Thrilled for you, and I hope that that's a great experience with the Newman Civic Fellowship. All right, and now we have 2 Goldwater scholars. Now, I want to preface this by saying this is something you're going to see more of, I hope, in the future, now that we are a national research university. These are the kinds of scholarships that you typically see at universities in this category. These are significant national recognitions. So in particular, the Goldwater Scholars select high achieving students who will pursue research careers in STEM fields. And obviously we have some great strengths in this regard. You see there are 413 chosen nationwide, and we have 2 with us. So first, Ava Galgano, would you stand? So congratulations, Ava. Ava received a junior chemistry major with a biochemistry concentration, with minors in honors interdisciplinary studies, pre-med and math, and a president of the Alpha Lambda Delta National Honor Society. It's a shame that Ava's an underachiever, isn't it? Congratulations, Ava. This should be a terrific experience. And with Ava is a name that some of you may know, Stephanie Oderkirk. Stephanie, would you stand? Now, keeping with the theme, if you look in the sciences here, Stephanie is a junior biophysical chemistry major. I guess couldn't decide, so brought them all together, all the scientific disciplines. But you may also know Stephanie as a member of JMU women's basketball team that recently went to the NCAA tournament, and also a local star to boot. So if you think about that for a moment, a member of a major Division I basketball team who is a Goldwater scholar, that is an extraordinary combination. So congratulations. All right, and next, turning to a different field, and it's kind of interesting when you think about, we've been talking about sort of public policy and engagement, the sciences, and now the performing arts and music, another area of great strength at this university. Haven Khan, would you stand? So, and congratulations, Haven. That Haven is not graduating yet, a junior music major pursuing a degree in saxophone performance. He has gotten several significant awards recently, including the Petrichor Grand Prize winner in the under 21 category, and second place in the Van Doren Emerging Artist Competition. And his professor was over the moon excited when I heard about this. He said, this is one of the biggest competitions that you find anywhere in the world, and that Haven beat out a lot of graduate students from some of the most prestigious programs in the country. So Haven, that is very exciting. Congratulations. We can't wait to see what you do with your tremendous talent. Congratulations. Now, it is not just our students that are doing great things, but of course our faculty and staff are as well. And let's see, is Ken here?
He's right
there. He is. Ken Rutherford is a name known to many of you. Ken, would you stand so we can acknowledge you? Ken is a professor of political science, but many of you will know him as having served for a number of years as the director of CISR, that Center for International Stabilization and Recovery, working on landmines and unexploded ordnances around the world, has truly done incredible work all around the world. He also, because he's got a lot of spare time, wrote a book recently, an award-winning book entitled America's Buried History, Landmines in the Civil War. I had the chance to read it. It's really a part of the story that a lot of us don't know about the American Civil War. So landmines are not just a recent phenomenon. So thank you, Ken, for that tremendous contribution to American history as well. And you see, he was appointed by Governor Youngkin to the Virginia Board of Historic Resources. Very appropriate given your work and your talent. So Ken, congratulations. Thank you for representing us so well. All right, and another one to something a little bit different, but also fun on the staff side now. So you all know that Aramark does great work for us. Board members have had the opportunity to experience their creativity, and it's being noticed nationally. So there was a competition regionally first, and then it will be at the national level, But we sent several folks to this Aramark Culinary Excellence Competition in Durham, and it was won by Franco Lacio. Franco, would you stand? Very appropriately dressed for the day. It's always easy to spot you in a crowd, Franco. Franco, as you see, is the sous chef for JMU Catering and Special Events, so you have benefited from his tremendous expertise. I asked him what he's going to make next, and I guess they don't necessarily know, right? They might surprise you at the competition, give you some ingredients. It's like one of those television shows. So we are just thrilled to have that quality. And, you know, we don't want to underestimate how important food is, right? It brings people together. It's one of the reasons, frankly, why a lot of students come here, because they see that incredible hospitality. And it is one of those things that unites everybody together. So Franco, congratulations to you and to your whole team. Please give all of them our respect and thanks for the great work that you do each and every day for our students and our faculty and staff and greater community as well. All right. A few last things to mention here, a lot going on, as you can see. We did have our annual diversity conference recently with over 400 attendees. This event keeps growing every year. This really serves our entire community, faculty, staff, students, as well as community partners and individuals from peer institutions. We were excited this year to have opening remarks by Martin Brown, who is the Chief Diversity Officer for the Commonwealth, so a member of the Governor's Cabinet, who joined us for this event, and a keynote delivered by Vice President Malika Carter-Hoyt. Malika, since you're here, would you stand also so we can acknowledge your work in your first year and put it forward? A lot of good things about that event. Okay, now it's not just what we're doing here in Virginia and in the United States, but you all know that as JMU has moved into this national university status, we also have a lot of international connections. And I wanted to just mention briefly the work with Rwanda, because there's a lot going on here, and that's not where everybody else is in terms of all the other colleges in the United States. So recently from the College of Education, we had a visit to Rwanda. A couple of our associate deans, Brian Zugelder and Boris Griffin, as well as Associate Vice Provost Bessie Muhanja, visited Rwanda to formalize partnerships with their Ministry of Education. And you see, we're going to be enrolling Rwandan teachers in our graduate certificate for teacher leadership. The College of Education at the University of Rwanda is also going to be partnering with us to provide faculty exchanges and share information on how we support our faculty and comparing curricula as well. So really excited to have that partnership. They've also been working with teachers related to I Debate Rwanda, which is a program that we've worked with for several years now. And the Minister of Education of Rwanda is going to be visiting in September. And the I Debate Rwanda team will once again be visiting this fall as well. So some really exciting partnerships and collaborations, and just an example of how JMU is building those international and global partnerships. So thank you to everybody involved with that. Turning to civic engagement for a moment now, and I am very excited to be able, and I think you heard this earlier in one of your reports, but in case you missed it, David Kirkpatrick, who I think you've seen before, is now officially the executive director. David, would you stand? David has been the interim director over the past year plus, has done extraordinary work in that role, leading the center, has built relationships literally around the country and around the world for JMU. He really gets the importance of this for students across the entire political spectrum and involving and engaging with different points of view, encouraging civil discourse. So we are so thrilled to have David take on this very important role where JMU is really perceived. And I can tell you, I go to a number of national conferences and everybody now knows about JMU's leadership in this space. So David, thank you for what you do. Just a couple of examples of things that are happening all the time here through civic engagement. We had an event recently which was very well attended by students and faculty called Europe at the Crossroads, where Marcus Taglis came from the German embassy and talked about the impact of the war in Ukraine and what that's doing to Europe and threats to democracy, particularly in Europe, but also thinking globally. So that was an extraordinary opportunity for our students to engage with him. We also were designated once again as a voter-friendly campus which is a really important designation for colleges and universities nationally. And we will be participating with 11 other Virginia schools in what's called the Constructive Dialogue Institute coming up over the next year, with that emphasis on civil discourse and bringing people together across differences and how you model that. There's a lot of work to be done in our society on that front, and we're delighted to be working with schools around Virginia on that topic. Okay. Speaking of civil discourse, the Madison Vision Series was started a number of years ago now to bring a whole variety of different speakers to campus to talk about the important public policy issues of our time. And we had just an extraordinary event that some of you participated in or saw, a town hall featuring Dr. Anthony Fauci, as well as CNN anchor Jim Acosta, and one of our own students, Hugh McFarlane, who did a great job of moderating and participating. Over 1,000 people were here for that event. And this is something, of course, we will continue to do. If you have suggestions for high profile, interesting speakers, we do this, by the way. Most of the speakers that we get don't even charge, whereas a lot of other universities, the quality of speakers we're getting, universities will pay $10, $20, $50, or $100,000 for. We don't have that kind of budget for this, but we are very fortunate through contacts and through the university's reputation to be able to get some really extraordinary speakers. So be on the lookout as we announce next year's schedule, which we will be working on over the summer. Okay. And finally, I just want to second what you heard in the athletics report. Of course, the tremendous success in its first year in the Sun Belt. Women's basketball, of course, winning the Sun Belt in its inaugural season, our second team to win a Sun Belt championship after volleyball, and representing us so well in the NCAA tournament. Lacrosse, as you heard, is already clinched at least a tie for first place in the AAC, the American Athletic Conference, is ranked 4th in the country, has won a record-tying 14 in a row. So it's really an exciting team to watch. And you heard all the spring sports teams are over 500, and we've now finalized the football schedule. So a lot of positive energy in the athletic program, really excited to see the success that they are already having. So congratulations to Jeff and his team and to all of our student athletes. And Madam Rector, that concludes my report. I'd be happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions for the president? All right, very good. Thank you, President Oliver. Next up is Tawana Moore to discuss the 2023-2024 proposed tuition and fees, as well as the 2024 summer tuition and fees. Tawana?
Good morning. Okay, so when we're talking about tuition and fees, this year when we're setting the budget, there's a few things we don't know. But there are some things we do know. So to start my presentation, I just want to review those with you. So if we look at our 3-year average for in-state tuition increases for the past 3 years, during the same time that the CPI for that period was 5.2%, we increased tuition only 2%. If you compare Virginia public institutions, there are 15 of those for our 22-23, which is this year. JMU ranks 11th lowest in tuition, and in-state overall total costs, if you add removal, we're 11th as well. This next bullet is something that's very important. I think everyone needs to understand, and I'm talking specifically to the gallery because I think most of the board members have heard me say this several times, but I want to make this point. JMU is one of the lowest funded institutions per full-time equivalent student. For the public 4 years, we are one of the lowest funded in the Commonwealth. We receive $7,952 per full-time equivalent student, when the average of the 4-year publics is $10,292. So that funding does play a part in what we have to do when we're setting our tuition. So I want to make that point so that everyone is clear on that. So there's a lot of factors that we're looking at this year when we're determining setting our tuition and fees. And the first one is state funding uncertainty. As most of you probably know, the Commonwealth has not set a budget yet. And so that makes it a little bit difficult for us. But operationally, we need to go ahead and set our budget so that our incoming students know what their tuition and fees are gonna be, and also so operationally, we can load the budget and then do all of the things on the business side in terms of financial aid that we need to do. Next slide, please. So this slide shows the biennial budget. This is what it will revert to if a budget is not passed. It's what we refer to as a skinny budget. And so there are some factors that we know for sure that if they don't pass a budget, these things are what we have to contend with. We know that there's going to be a 5% pay increase, at least a 5% pay increase. We know that we'll receive $5.6 million in student financial assistance. That is money that goes directly to students who have demonstrated need. And then there's $300,000 for a teacher assistance program. Now, the bottom boxes, the governor and House and Senate, and those are the two I particularly want to call to your attention, the House and the Senate. Both of those bodies proposed a 7% pay increase for all full-time employees across the Commonwealth. So because they proposed, both of them proposed that 7%, I'm very hopeful that that will happen for our employees. But again, we don't know. But we made the assumption in our budget, we built in that there would be a 7% pay increase. You know, it may have to be adjusted if we revert back to the skinny budget, but that is what we built in for this year. In addition, you'll see that the House proposed 4.49 for affordable access for in-state tuition moderation. Those are funds that they provide for the university to help us with our expenses so that we wouldn't have to go up on tuition as much. The Senate proposed 9.9. So there's a pretty wide variance in the two and what they proposed. To be on the conservative side, we included the 4.5. We're hopeful that that's what they would include. So that's what we built into the budget for next year. So I wanted to make you aware that those are two of the assumptions that we made. So when we go back to this chart, this next bullet, the faculty and staff compensation, is the most expensive thing that's on this list. And all of these things I'm going to refer to both on the E&G side, which is education in general, which is all of those expenses on the side of educating the students. Those are all the educational expenses. I'll also refer to the auxiliary side, which are things like dining, parking, bookstore, all of those areas that have to be 100% self-supporting because they have different nuances to them. And I just wanted to explain that so it makes a little bit of sense. So on the faculty staff compensation side, there are two bullets here. One is the state pay adjustment, which I've said we're assuming or hoping that is 7%. The other one is a 4% increase in medical insurance costs. So on the E&G side, for both of those bullets combined, the price tag to the university is $17.6 million, just for those two things. Now, there's something called a fund split. So in the state of Virginia, the Commonwealth doesn't fund all of those items at 100%. We get around 50% of the funds that we'll need for that $17.6 million. The other half of it, the university is responsible for identifying. Well, we have to do that through tuition or cost cutting, those sorts of things. And so that is a huge, it's about 65% of the increase that we're looking at totally for the budget is coming from that bullet right there. So it's substantial. The next bullet, this Virginia Military Survivors Dependents Education Program, is what I would call, it is an unfunded mandate. It's a mandate from the Commonwealth. They have said, okay, all of the 15 universities and across the Commonwealth, you will provide this benefit for veterans and their dependents. So if somebody's been killed or in prison, or if they're 90% disabled, the university has to provide all of their educational costs for them, free of charge for them to come to school. It's a benefit that the Commonwealth has said, we want to do that, it's important. And we wholeheartedly agree. It's a wonderful program. They have fought for our country and for our freedom, and we appreciate it very much. However, for the universities, it is a significant expense. So we're building in it has continued to increase. We're building in $1.5 million this year, but the total cost to the university each year for this coming year is $4 million. And that's $4 million that we are not receiving money for. The next one is unavoidable and inflationary costs. This is something that affects both E&G and auxiliaries. You guys have gone to the grocery store, you've been to the gas pumps, your utilities, all of those things have gone up because of inflation. It affects the E&G side and the classroom with supplies and everything. It significantly hit the auxiliaries because of our dining program. Our dining program is huge. It's about a little over $58 million for our program. And to have all those food costs and fuel costs to get the food here, the employee costs, all of those things are significant on the auxiliary side of the house. So you see we have to cover some costs there. We have debt on the auxiliary side. This is some refinancing that we did during the COVID. We also have the East Campus Power Plant and the Village coming online. So that's where we're seeing some dollars for debt. And then student success investment, the lion's share of this is re-engineering Madison. We're starting to put in that new information technology platform. We have chosen our vendor for our CRM, and we're starting to move out on doing that installation. And then finally, financial aid and scholarships. When you raise tuition, then you have to raise your financial aid and scholarships accordingly. Next slide. So I wanted to prepare a slide that actually showed that we have some skin in the game, because if I were a board member, I'd want to know what is JMU doing? What are we trying to do to make things better or more cost efficient? Or are we just sitting around, not looking at those things? And I want to assure you that that is absolutely not true. The top bullet is a procurement one, and I have worked directly with procurement for the last 20 years. So I'm really proud of this one. There are several different consortiums that we belong to, different groups that their whole purpose is to get together and harness the buying power of the Commonwealth. So when we get together and buy things as a group, if we do cooperative contracts across the universities, we get better pricing. And I call your attention to the one in the middle, the Virginia Higher Ed Procurement Consortium. That one is a group of the different universities, and in addition, the community colleges are a member. And we look at all of our high dollar contracts like information technology, office supplies, and those sorts of things. And it saved billions for the Commonwealth since it was started in 2014. We were a member from the start, but in the last 5 years, we have identified $5.2 million in savings for JMU, specifically for us. On the facilities management side, years ago, we decided that we wanted to meter every single building so that we could better tell what was going on utilities for our steam and all the things that we use to heat and cool and light these buildings. And so we have done that. So we are able to get really good data on what our projects are and what we've been working on. And in the last 5 years, we've had about 20 different projects, and they range from replacing chillers and boilers to putting in chiller loops, which increase efficiency of the chillers, LED projects. We have temperature setbacks in the buildings, just a host of sustainability projects that we've been doing that have resulted in $5.4 million in savings over the last 5 years. And then finally, I looked over on the academic side of the house and said, okay, what are you guys doing? And the one I identified just lately is a 2-year project that the libraries have been doing to conservatively look at their contracts and their subscriptions. And they identified $450,000 in savings that they were able to cut out of their expenses. So next slide, please.
Hey, Tawana, can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
Is back to that fund split, like
Uh-huh.
2 slides ago, is it common knowledge about the fund split with JMU employees and leadership or not?
I think it's, I mean, we try to explain it. Honestly, I think it's well known in our area. I think the deans probably have a pretty good understanding of it, but the rank and file, I don't know that they do, honestly.
Hey, Tawana, on that last slide, that's a really important point on the procurement associations and cost savings there.
Uh-huh.
I know that I have worked with staff, some of which are in this room, that have talked about attending their mandatory training virtually too, to have some cost savings. So that's a real important point, I think, for us board members to have. So thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you, Chris. Anything else right now? Okay, so well, just by way of review, let's talk about what happened last year, because it was a little bit of an unusual year. When we met in April, the board approved a 3.9% increase for in-state tuition. And then the budget was passed and the Commonwealth was very generous to the university in giving us access and affordability money and also some base adequacy for support. And so the board made the decision to have an executive committee meeting and actually decided to reduce the amount of the tuition increase for in-state students to 3%, and then to provide a one-time tuition scholarship for those students. So even though that 3% was built into the increase, the students did receive a scholarship for that one time for the year. So they got it for each semester. So when you look at these numbers here, this tuition increase for this year does have that 3% from last year in there. And then what I'm proposing for this year, given all of the factors that I just discussed a minute ago, I'm proposing a 3% increase for in-state students, which is an increase of $230 for the year, which will increase it to $7,914. Now, for a room and board, for students, it's an increase of $484. And that is, that brings that total to $11,988. So a total on campus in-state student will see an increase of $1,024. For out-of-state students, it's a 1.6% increase or $384 for tuition and fees. And then the comprehensive fee and the room and board are the same, whether you're in-state or out-of-state. So it'd be $254 for the comp fee and then $540 for their room and board. Madam Rector, this does require action from the board. Oh, no, wait, I'm sorry. I should have done graduates. I missed those. Sorry about that. For graduate students, for the in-state graduate student, I'm proposing an increase of $16 per credit hour for in-state, and then for an out-of-state student, an increase of $21 per credit hour. And those are the same percentages, 3% for in-state and the roughly 1.6 for out-of-state. So the same percentages. I did really jump ahead, didn't I? Okay, so next slide, please.
Now you want to know. Mr. Rutherford.
No, it's not time yet. I do have a couple more slides I want to. Okay. So this slide I wanted to bring your attention to because this time of year you do see articles in the newspaper where they compare percentages when they talk about. They'll talk about William and Mary and what they may be doing, or Virginia Tech, and then they compare JMU in there too. And I've read a couple of them already. And I just want to bring your attention to this because 1% for William and Mary generates $176 for this year's rate. A 1% for us is $77. So if you're reading that article and you're comparing percentages, you're not getting a whole picture of what's going on there. There's a significant amount of money that is generated at 3% for William and Mary that just doesn't happen for JMU. So I just, if you're out, and especially being the SGA president or the rep to the board and kids talk about this, I want you to be able to understand the differences in how much money it generates based on the percentages. Next slide. Okay. So this slide shows, the purple boxes are the JMU rates at the increase rate for next year, for 23-24. And everyone else at 22-23. So they're at old rates, we're at new rates, and this is where JMU ends up. Obviously, once everybody sets their tuition, it will change for tuition and fees. But if you look over to the left, you'll see as far as tuition goes, we're still really low on that list of 15 institutions. But everybody writes one check for their tuition and fees, so I'll call your attention to the columns on the far right. And you see that for total in-state student for comp room and board, we rank 9th out of all of the colleges in the Commonwealth.
And Tawana, just refresh me, aren't the numbers in purple with the adjustment?
Yes.
Everything else is current.
Correct.
So this doesn't actually reflect post all the other schools.
Exactly.
Making any adjustments they might make.
Right.
Where we land, and it would likely be going lower again.
It could change, yes. And then for out of state, you can see at our new rate, even with everybody else before they raise theirs. Where we fall at 10. So I would argue that JMU is a great value as compared to the other schools in the Commonwealth. And then next slide, please. This is just a slide that shows when you compare us to our out of state, the schools that we typically are looking to draw applicants against, I guess you'd say. I just wanted to show where we are in terms of our pricing and the expenses of some of the others to show that we're still competitive for those. And then finally, before I ask for action from the board, I thought one of the questions you may ask is what are some of the other schools in Virginia doing in terms of their in-state tuition? So UVA is 3.7, Virginia Tech is 4.9, Christopher Newport is 4.9, Old Dominion is going to propose 4.8, and George Mason is 3, same as we are. And Madam Rector, this does require action.
Thank you.
And
now.
On the 2023-2024 tuition and fees, we recognize there could be changes in the final budget that is approved by the General Assembly in the next few weeks. If it becomes necessary to review the budget approved by the General Assembly, the Executive Committee may be called to meet. All board members would be invited to that meeting. However, at this time, on a motion from the Finance and Physical Development Committee, I move the board approve the 2023-24 tuition fees as proposed.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
I was just gonna add one point. Tawana, thank you for mentioning what the possible tuition increases were for the other universities. But I also wanted to say that it was a common practice across the Commonwealth last year for universities to offer the waiver scholarship as well.
Yes, every single university did it exactly the same way we did. And they are all doing it the same way we're proposing in terms of it being built in. They're all doing it the same way.
So the increase is built
Yes,
upon that.
Yeah,
So
we're
thank
all
you.
doing it the same.
Thank you. Just wanted to make sure that
We're clear. Thank you. Matt?
I just, I know this is totally anecdotal, but I thought I would just share our experience as parents over the last year. We spent the last year with our son visiting colleges. And he has visited, I think, 11 of them in Virginia and neighboring states. And decided that he's going to come to JMU next year, which we're very excited about. And we were very organized, so I think, in following some of the costs associated with different schools. And the real selling point for JMU for him and for us was that there are just so many programs. There are so many majors, there are so many sports, there's so many extracurricular activities. And for parents, we were most reassured by the Student Success Center and all the programs that are there to support students to succeed when they come here, which were really not present at many of the other schools that we went to. So JMU offered so much more And on our little Excel spreadsheet, it was the least expensive. It was the least expensive option, so we're also delighted about that. So it's been a very different perspective for me in the last year to look at all of this as a parent going through it rather than just as a board member. And it was a really impressive representation of JMU and the value of it. So I just wanted to share that.
Terry, did you?
I'm new to the board, so this is a new process for me, but it seems like last year it was proposed and then you had to make an adjustment, after the governor's budget got done. So I'm just wondering why we wouldn't just wait. And if it's 4 weeks out, then we'll know, and then you don't have to make an adjustment. Because you may have to go up or you may have to go down. So it seems like it's like a tuition with a little asterisk on it, and why not just delay it and decide at one time?
I'll speak from the standpoint of some of the processes that we have to do. Based on history, we have no guarantee when the General Assembly is going to come together and when the governor is going to approve a budget. We've even heard it might not get done by June 30th. And that would cause a lot of complications for us in terms of finalizing our financial aid and getting those awards out. We send out bills around June 1st, right, Mark? Technically?
In July.
But when people pay their tuition and their bill, that's what helps us know exactly who's coming back. And for housing and registration and classes, the longer it is until August that they're paying that makes it very difficult for us to plan and make adjustments as we may need to based on how many students are actually showing up. And so it provides some complications. I mean, obviously, we would deal with that if we have to, but it does complicate everything that we need to do over the summer to prepare for the academic year in August.
Okay, thank you.
I am hypersensitive to. We're talking about percentage increases, but to some families, dollars matter. And I very much appreciate what you're sharing about the certainty that we need, but I have a process question. Has this board ever had the benefit of a past budget when making the determination on tuition increases? Or are we always in this limbo period where we don't know the budget, and yet for the benefit of our own certainty for our systems, we have to, put our finger up to the wind and guess on what the state is going to do in making solid determinations?
The simple answer is we have had state budgets.
Usually we have,
Yes.
Usually it's approved by now.
Last year was the first year we didn't.
usually it is
Yeah.
approved by.
Yeah.
That, and Jack, that's my experience as well. Laura and I started at the same time. This last year was the first year since I've been serving on the board that we didn't have a confirmed state budget going into this meeting. So last year was the first time we had to make any accommodations to account for the uncertainty that they're planning against.
And all of the other in-states, all the other institutions are setting theirs right around this time. There's several of them that are doing it today, just the same as we are.
I have a quick question. Thank you for the presentation. So just looking at dollars, taking our, if we just use 1%, multiplying our 1% times our population, and multiplying the 1% times the other universities' populations, they're making so much more money than what we are. So do we have an idea of what's that dollar amount look like for us at 3%? Because if they're going up 3%, it's still, the gap is tremendous. So looking at our costs, knowing how much is that 3% going to get us, knowing that we have tuition increases or we have salary increases, and lots of other costs.
Yeah. Well, that's an excellent point, Craig. One thing I want to say before we get to what the dollars will be, I can give you an approximate. You're asking me to do math up here. But, we try really hard to be sensitive because the tuition is one component of what the students have to pay. But because of these inflationary pressures we've had, the comprehensive fee and the room and board fee are both going up 4.7%. So, I agree with you, and I would love to say we should go up higher. But I wanted to be sensitive to the students too, because they're getting hit in those other categories as well. So you're exactly right. When I get to the budget part of the presentation, you'll see that the university is reallocating some money to make the budget match, to make it balance. We're doing our part too. But we purposely chose to stick at the 3% just because we were trying to be sensitive to the students and the fact that their families are having these inflation problems too.
I was truly amazed by putting that number on paper and looking at universities that have half of our population, multiplying times the amount of money, they're still making more money. So you're just like, it's when you put it into real dollars, the cost of a cheeseburger today is totally different than it was last year. So we got to look at those costs, and unfortunately it gets passed on, but we're providing a great value here at JMU. Thank you for the work.
Yeah, we're trying to be good stewards of the Commonwealth. We understand it's a priority of the governor to be sensitive to this. So we were trying to respect that and just trying to find a balance for everything.
Yeah, thank you. Same here.
Thank you, Madam Rector. I just wanted to say, being on the board for now 2 years, one of the things that I was hearing from the student body was we wanted to understand this process more about how tuition fees were set. And working with Tawana now for 2 years, there has not been a time yet where I've gone to her and said, hey, I have a student that's interested in learning about this process. Would you mind maybe meeting on Zoom? Would you mind coming and doing this event with me in Madison U? Would you mind allowing me to bring students to the boardroom when we do our tuition hearing? And she's been very transparent and open about this process. It's complicated, but I've learned a lot over the past 2 years. I just want to say thank you for taking time to kind of explain this to the kids, affectionately known. And I've had a few friends that come to those meetings, and I would say, I understand no one's going to probably, student body may not necessarily advocate for a tuition raise, but to understand really where the money is going, but two, how these decisions are made. I can share that there are a few students I know personally that are grateful to have learned about this process and for the way that you inform us about how this decision does get made. So I just wanted to say thank you.
Thank you.
I'd just like to make a comment. During our discussion last evening in the committee meeting, I had angst about moving forward. And so I want to comment today saying I still have angst moving forward because we don't know what the state's going to do. So I appreciate the motion being modified from what we had last evening, because to have the ability to come back and modify through executive committee, because that's a big deal, because we do not know what the state's going to do. And there are 2 months between now and when they have to do something. And we are supposed to be making decisions that are on the best interest of the parents and families of Virginia. And that's why I'm sitting here. I also have a problem with transparency, and 3% does not adequately reflect what we're doing today. I think based on what was done last year and the scholarship dollars that we gave back to the students is not exactly what we're doing today. The parents and families of Virginia are going to have to pay more than 3% when they write their check. And I think we need to reflect that when we make a vote, because they're going to be paying more than 3% when they stroke that check.
How would you propose we change the motion? Because we've already.
I'm not asking you to change the motion. I'm saying we need to, they wrote a check for $7,640 last year. And we're asking them to write a check for $7,914. That's a greater increase than 3%. And that's what I'm simply saying.
Because they won't have the one-time credit.
And they're not getting a credit from us this year.
Not so far anyway. We don't know.
The credit, remember, we ended up calling it a scholarship, but it was really almost like a hardship. pandemic credit, if I remember correctly. It was that the state had given us extra money. And because everybody was dealing with so many pandemic related issues, that the vote was to pass that down to the families during that time of unprecedented uncertainty. I mean, that's how at least I remember. We ended up calling it a scholarship, but it was almost more like a hardship pandemic credit. That's the way I remember.
That's the way I remember it too.
Yeah.
Just a process question too. I just wonder if maybe this isn't the right time, but at some point we should say, whenever we have our board meeting in May, if the budget's not approved by the governor, here's our standard process. Either we delay it a month and we meet in June when we get the budget, or we say that's the last date. Because I appreciate what Donna's saying. You don't want to put the whole university in a turmoil, but it seems like we should have a standard. Either we do something conservative now, or we delay it 30 days, and then our drop dead date is the end of June. And we go with whatever that is if the budget's not done. But I feel more comfortable voting on it, knowing exactly what we're going to be getting from the state. That's my angst. And I can appreciate you have the same angst.
Yes, absolutely.
Tawana, are all the comparable universities going through the same exact process? So they're setting their changes now. And making their judgments and approvals or not.
Yeah, the only one that I'm aware of that's not facing this is UVA, because they set theirs for 2 years at a time.
Okay, so it's not like we're operating like some anomaly. We're
No, everyone else is going through this.
okay.
So that last year, did anybody else delay their decision on their
No.
tuition? No, none of them.
As I recall, they were all in the same boat as we were, and so they regrouped very late in the game. And I would emphasize, remember, it's not just the tuition, it's also our budget. It really makes it a lot harder for the university to plan and prepare for the year when we don't have a definite budget until the day the fiscal year starts. So there are a lot of other implications, and I want to underscore what Donna mentioned with the concern about MELT. This is the time when students are making decisions. And if they don't have any idea what tuition might be, that's problematic. You could lose students just because of the uncertainty. This at least gives them some sense. And the good thing is you're not talking about going up later unless there is some complete catastrophe in Virginia, right?
Right.
The only likelihood is that you would go down from where you are, which is a good thing for families, but it gives them something to plan for and budget for. I think it's actually a really good thing to do. I think the delay is more harmful than helpful for everybody concerned for that reason.
So the way the motion's written, we would approve it today, but we would regroup after the governor makes the budget is finalized to say, is this the right amount or not? Or do we make a change?
Yeah, if there's,
Okay.
Yeah, that preamble to the motion, I think is extraordinarily important in terms of process for us, because it gives us the ability to revisit once the state does what
That's right.
ostensibly what we would prefer for it to have done by now.
Right. And so Tawana has built the proposal as well as the budget on a very conservative view to what the state would give. And that gives a little room if there are adjustments from her assumptions.
I'd like to reiterate what President Alger said. I have families and people that call all the time, and they need to know the top number now, because every dollar, like you said, Jack, matters. And if you tell them it's uncertain till June, you're gonna lose kids. And it's a stressful enough time now when they're looking at dollars and cents and comparing schools. Should they commute from home? Should they come to JMU? Things like that. I wouldn't be an advocate of delaying the number.
Any other comments? Great discussion, and I really appreciate everyone's comments and viewpoints. That's why we're here. So I appreciate that. So I guess at this point, we will vote. All those in favor of moving forward.
And for clarity, then the motion as defined is to approve now But if it's budget as approved and Richmond ends up being materially different than what our budget is based on, then the executive committee will regroup and
Yes.
take a new look at.
Madam Chair, could we just reread the
Thank you,
motion?
Mr. Rothenberg, will you please?
On the subject 2023-24 tuition and fees, we recognize there could be changes in the final budget that is approved by the General Assembly in the next few weeks. If it becomes necessary to review the budget approved by the General Assembly, the Executive Committee may be called to meet. All board members would be invited to that meeting. However, at this time, on motion from the Finance and Physical Development Committee, I move the board approve the 23-24 tuition and fees as proposed.
Everyone good? All those in favor? Those opposed?
No. Yeah, I would hold.
So the motion passes. And we will move on to the next topic. Thank you, everyone.
So at this meeting, we also do summer school tuition and fees for, and this will be for next summer. So the same percentages apply. And so for an undergraduate summer school student, we're suggesting a 3% increase. It's a change of $12. So it'll be $408 per credit hour. For an out-of-state student, it's a $14 change to $985 per credit hour. For a Virginia graduate student, it's a $14 per credit hour change. This is $475. And then for an out-of-state graduate student, it's a $16 change to $1,117 per credit hour. For the comp fee, it's the same across all the different categories. It will just be a $1 increase per credit hour. And then for room and board, the suggestion for room is a $5 increase. And then for board, it's a $10 increase. And Madam Rector, this does require action from the board.
On the 2023-2024 summer tuition and fees, on motion from the Finance and Physical Development Committee, I move the board approve the proposed 24 summer tuition and fees.
The way that's written, that does not need a second. Are there any comments about tuition and fees for the proposed budget?
I have a question. Tawana, is it correct? There was not the waiver or scholarship offered on these fees, so this is a true.
This is true. This is true.
Okay.
Thank you. Any other comments? Right, all those in favor? Those opposed? No. Motion's approved. Thank you.
Nice job.
Okay, so then we'll move on to the 2023-24 budget. Next slide, please. This is the current budget for this year and all of the different categories. Education and general auxiliary on down, and our current operating budget is $684.9 million. Next slide. I'm not going to go over these again. We've kind of covered those. So next slide, please. So these slides that I'm going to be showing you, this is the change that will occur because of the vote that you just made. This is the change to the budget in incremental revenue. So the top section of this where it says total general fund revenue, these are the dollars that will be coming, hopefully, from the Commonwealth. So you see the 9.7, that is the Commonwealth portion, that's the fund split. That's where they're giving us money for that 7% pay increase. And then the financial aid, which is in the skinny budget, is 5.3, that'll be available. And then this 4.4 is that's where I'm hopeful. That is the conservative figure that we plugged into the budget based on what the House had proposed. And then finally, that teacher recruitment strategic initiative of the 300,000. So the total for general fund revenue is $19.8 million. If you go down and you get to the 4.1 million, that is the tuition and some other fees that are generated by the change that you voted on just now. So the total change to our budget would be the 24,037,438 in terms of revenue on the E&G side. Next slide. So let's look at how would we spend that money. I talked to you about this earlier in this slide. 17.6 million of this is for the increase in the faculty and staff wages, and then there are these fringe benefit changes. The total is 17.6 million. Then we have financial aid and scholarships of 5.8. The 1.3 I talked about was predominantly re-engineering Madison. We have some faculty promotions, facilities operations, that strategic initiative. There's an indirect cost recovery where the money's coming back from the auxiliaries, and then reallocations where we're actually reallocating 2.473689 to balance this requirement. So it's again, the expenses are 24,037,438. This is on the E&G side. So these slides are the entire E&G budget. So that's when I'm taking the changes that I just talked to you about of that 24 million, putting it in that budget, and then we're seeing how these categories fall at. So the total E&G budget is $434.5 million. If you look at the slide on the left, it just shows you where the money's coming from. 59.2% of our total E&G budget comes from tuition and fees. And then there's 39.6 that's coming in support from the Commonwealth. If you look on the expenditure side, you see that large section of purple, and it's compensation. And that's just telling you that the majority of the money that we spend on the E&G side is actually spent for people that are spent teaching our students in the classrooms and in the departments. And then you see it goes on, it drops dramatically from there for financial aid, utilities, on down to a very small amount of debt. Next slide. Then we look at education and general expenditures by budget category. And I like this slide. I show this every time. This huge purple amount just shows that of the E&G expenditures that we have, $271.4 million is spent on instruction and academic support. So 67.3 cents of every dollar that we spend goes to educating our students. I think that's an important statistic that I'm proud of that, to work here and know that that's our mission, is to educate students, and that's where we're spending those funds. Then you come around, institutional support is simply the offices that make the institution run, procurement, payroll, those types of things, HR. And then the physical plant is 11.2%. Student services, things like counseling, student life, disability services, those types of offices, and then a very small amount for public service. Next slide. So then we look at the auxiliary side. Just by way of reminder, the auxiliaries are departments that must be 100% self-supporting. So they pay for any expense that is that they have as a result of running their operation. And I give this example just so it's easier to understand for people. The parking office is considered an auxiliary. So all the people that work there, the ticket writers, the people in the office, the price of striping, paving, the debt on the parking decks that we have, snow removal, lights, anything that is involved in that expense is paid for by raising the registration fees and the parking fines that we pay. No money from the state goes for auxiliaries. So just want to make that clear. So then you see all these lists, the board, the comprehensive fee, room, and then auxiliary sales. So the total change on the auxiliary side is $14.8 million. Next slide. So where do we spend that money? I told you earlier that dining is one of the largest that we have. It's one of the largest that Airmark has. We're in the top 5 in terms of our dining operation. And we owe them a CPI increase contractually, and with inflation the way that it was, it's a significant expense for us. So there's 9.2 that goes for facilities operations, and then that. We talked about debt for the village and for the East Campus Power Plant. Then there is the salary and wages, as I just said, every bit of that 7% that we're building in, and also the medical insurance increases. For anybody that works in an auxiliary office, we have to raise 100% of those costs. So that's where you get this $2.7 million. Again, we have financial aid and scholarships, and we did some reallocation on the auxiliary side, and then the expenses balance again to the 14.8. Next slide. So I have a pie chart too for the auxiliaries. This looks a little bit different than the E&G. If you see on the revenue side, obviously the comprehensive fee is going to be the biggest. It's at 43.2%. And then the board fee for us, the 22.7, is large because of the size of our dining operation. We have non-fee revenue, which is things like the gate fees that people pay to go to athletic events, or if they're buying things in the pharmacies, the commissions that we receive in dining, all those things are under the non-fee revenue. And then you have room and a very small amount that comes from parking. But on the expenditure side, this is where you can really see that the auxiliaries are paying their own way. Because you see there's a 22% for dining, that's the purple and gold portion up at the top. Then there's a large amount for the purple, which is the compensation at 19.7% of our expenditures. But then you see where we're having to pay for repair and maintenance and utilities and debt and equipment, and also an agency service charge, which is a fee that the auxiliaries have to pay back to the E&G side of the house for using any of the services on the campus. When we say they're 100% self-supporting, if they're using our HR, our payroll, our accounts payable offices, they have to help pay for those offices. So that's what that expense is. Next slide. So this is the final slide that just shows the change, the total change in the entire university budget based on the decisions from today. And our total operating budget for this year, the 684.9 increases to $723.8 million. That's a $38.9 million increase for 5.7%. And Madam Rector, this does require action.
On the 2023-24 budget, a motion from the Finance and Physical Development Committee, I move the board approve the 2023-2024 university budget.
Is there any further discussion about the budget? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed?
No.
Thank you so much.
No, Jack, what?
We've still got the majority.
Right behind you.
Okay. Jack, we just voted for the budget. You don't want to approve the budget?
It would be inconsistent with my other votes.
Okay. All right. So the motion passes. Thank you, Twana. And I do want to say, I have been through this process a number of times now, and it is truly, your team does a phenomenal job and works very hard to put that together. So I just wanted to let you know how much we appreciate all the work that you do putting that together. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Next up is the Research Institute and Centers, Anthony Tonga.
Hello, it's always a pleasure to meet with all of you. This is a follow-up to a board meeting in September where we talked about this initiative and laid it out. I want to first introduce myself. I'm Anthony Tongan, Vice Provost of Research and Scholarship. Research and Scholarship I'll refer to probably throughout this as RNX, just to clarify things, but we report to Provost Coltman, and a partnership or leadership has really been important. What I'm trying to do today is set the stage for what we're doing in the area of research support globally, and kind of set the stage for how these research centers fit into all of that big picture. So the finale of my remarks will be an exciting announcement of JMU's inaugural research centers. Research is not just another funding stream for universities. It is an indispensable component of higher education. Research provides the foundation for our understanding of the world around us. When applied to societal problems, research allows us to tackle challenges in healthcare, energy, international relations, commerce, agriculture, sustainability, lived and cultural experiences. Research also helps us refine and develop new methods of educating students, and it fosters our imagination to create works of art that are fundamental to the human experience. It was just over 1 year ago that JMU was reclassified by Carnegie as a research doctoral institution with high research activity. We often call this an R2. The R2 designation is based primarily on 2 publicly available metrics: number of awarded research doctoral degrees and research expenditures. Both of these metrics speak to the quality of JMU faculty, both in teaching and in research, and further confirm JMU's teacher-scholar model as an institutional strength. While we are exceeding our goals thus far, we are working to continue to increase our research expenditures. This will further solidify JMU's R2 status, as well as continue to expand scholarly opportunities for both faculty and for students. What we're going to talk about here is that we are intentionally and collaboratively building out research support with numerous constituencies, including our nationally recognized faculty who are performing cutting-edge research, and that is the foundation of this work and this approach. So first, our approach focuses on internal incentives and support. The colleges and departments, you see many deans represented here, and their respective AUHs do an excellent job of resource allocation to support students and faculty in their scholarly needs. In RNS, we have something called 4VA, which many of you have heard of, which is a partnership that provides support for 8 Virginia universities to work together to support collaborative research. There's also an area in RNS called research development, which has been reimagined as a unit providing funding opportunities support, partner relationships, JMU research communities, and access to resources. The other thing we're trying to do is integrate and amplify the innovation ecosystem across campus, which has pockets in all parts. I also want to note that we're working very closely with other divisions. For example, risk management and finance work very closely with Vice President Moore. Inclusive initiatives that work very closely with Vice President Carter Hoyt. Throughout the presentation, you also hear my partnerships with the other vice presidents. Our approach also includes external relationships. RNS has actually been meeting in our leadership teams with other research offices that are R1s and R2s, research institutions, to see how we can better align our services with what they're doing. In fact, I meet monthly with the other research officers across the Commonwealth at research institutions. We talk about how do we best support each other, what are the issues at hand, and how can we better partner and leverage the resources that the Commonwealth has given us. The Association of Public and Land-Grant Universities, which is APLU, has been a huge opportunity for JMU. I'm the JMU representative of the Council on Research, and I get to meet regularly with other research officers from across the country at both Research 1s and Research 2 institutions to really talk about what does it look like to prioritize research. One of the emphasis areas of APLU, the Council on Research, is public impact research. And this really well aligns with JMU's mission to be a model of the engaged university. To paraphrase APLU, when they describe what public impact research is, here's what they're saying. Supporting public impact research would not only build understanding among the general public, but would also help engage community partners, grow trust, and organize teams capable of tackling even the most complex and intractable societal challenges. And that sounds, and you're going to hear at the very end, we'll talk about that last bullet point, what we're trying to do in this area of interdisciplinary work. Another way that we are working on our external relationships is industry partnerships. We work very closely with Vice President Langridge and corporate foundations. We're also working with government and state relations with Caitlin Reed. And President Alger actually brought this up. It was a meeting where Caitlin introduced us to someone at Chef for that internship grant that the president talked about. That was a key part of us really thinking about how do we connect our region. So if it's all the way up to Winchester, all the way down to Lexington, we're representing the region and connecting industry to all the universities in the region as well. And JMU is the regional hub for that activity and workforce development. This also created a partnership with the University Career Center, which is under the leadership of Vice President Miller. The Office of Federal Relations and Communications, which is in RNS, liaises with congressional staff on national issues. In fact, we just had a visit there last week. A priority of Congress is access to higher education. We had recent opportunities to promote JMU's efforts in access and inclusion with VP Harper, like the launch of the Reddick Center for First Generation Students. We're also pursuing international, as you saw on President Alger's slide, we're also pursuing international research collaboration and partnerships in order to make JMU an international model. The third part, communications, involves everybody. In fact, people sitting in this room right here. Increasing social media engagement is one thing. If you happen to participate in things like Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, at JMU Research is a great place to follow and hear about the amazing things that are going on. Also, university marketing branding is creating and elevating more research-focused content. I encourage you to visit JMU's website and look for how many students are highlighting the research that our faculty and our students are doing. I also wanted to highlight one thing, and we didn't put it in your hands, but there is a research highlights report from the last fiscal year, which is in the very back. I'd encourage you all to pick it up. I knew if I gave it to you, you'd start flipping through it right now. So strategically, it's in the back, and it is the first time that we have created something like that in our office. And it's a great way to highlight the type of work that's going on and to start to position us as a research university. What I'm also learning is that these are the types of things that are sent to provosts, presidents, research officers, and this is how connections are made. And so this is our inaugural edition of our research highlights. I really encourage you just to look at it. And as you can imagine, it doesn't include everything we do. They're just highlights, but I think it's a good, it shows the breadth of scholarship that's happening at JMU. And finally, we want to build on our strengths. We have an extremely collaborative faculty, and numerous JMU centers have an interdisciplinary focus and emphasis on public impact research. In fact, some departments here at JMU were designed with that in mind. For instance, integrated science and technology, biotechnology, engineering. RNS has also started a student-focused division in our office. It's called STARE, the Student Awards Initiatives and Research Office. And it provides additional resources that support research and fellowship opportunities for students. So those gold waters you heard about, those came through the Office of Research and Scholarship. So moving to the topic of research centers, this gives you some broad idea of how we are strategically moving forward in thinking about how to elevate research on this campus. It's a common practice at doctoral institutions to develop and host research centers. RNS currently has purview over the chartering and reporting of JMU's 31, what we call them as academic institutes and centers. And these centers emphasize JMU's strengths. I'm going to name a few because you've likely heard of them. The Furious Flower Poetry Center, the Gillum Center for Entrepreneurship, the Institute for Innovation, Health, and Human Services, Center for STEM, Education and Outreach, and CISR, which we talked about earlier, the Center for International Stabilization and Recovery. These are 5 of our 31 centers, but these are the types of places where this interdisciplinary collaboration is happening. The focus of these institutes is primarily outreach and public service, which is an integral part of JMU's vision to be the national model of the engaged university. These centers successfully compete for millions of dollars each year. However, their funding does not have a significant impact on our research expenditure data that's used to classify us as an RMC. So in order to increase JMU's research expenditures, RNS developed and senior leadership approved the Research Academic Institutes and Centers Plan. This 10-year initiative is designed to support and create 3 new research centers, as well as support and elevate 3 existing research centers. After a competitive internal process, it is my pleasure to announce JMU's first 2 research centers created through this effort. The African American and Diaspora Studies Center, which is one of them, also you'll usually hear that referred to as AAAD, because it's a little bit easier to say, which is one of the most academically diverse organizations on campus, with representation from each JMU college. And the second one is the Center for Innovation in Early Childhood Development, which aligns with JMU's founding as a state normal institution and is well positioned to address the current challenges at the local, regional, national, and international levels with respect to childhood development. Both of these centers will receive indirect cost recovery funds in partnership with Vice President Moore, Provost Coltman, and the Research and Scholarship. The next 3 years, they will receive this funding to better position them for sustainability as fully grant-funded centers. at our trip last month to DC, we also submitted federal appropriations on behalf of both of these centers as an additional support to position them for success. So without further ado, it is my pleasure to invite the two center directors to share a brief overview of the vision of each center. Dr. Phillips, I'm going to introduce you to them briefly. Dr. Phillips, who was after a national search in 2022, was named the director of AAAD, and Dr. Miriam Sherfian, who was recently awarded the single largest grant in JMU's history.
Wow.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Thank you very much for offering the African American and Diaspora Studies Center the opportunity to share its research vision with you today. AAAD is the epicenter of Africana Studies at JMU, and we currently boast a robust internal center with, as you can tell, oh, I'm sorry. Oh, sorry, it's still up here. Yes, okay, so you'll see on the left column that we have an already impressive current research profile, and it enjoys participation from faculty from every college, as Tongan has said, and from an international community of scholars who participate in our conferences, our workshops, and our institutes. So far, however, this work has been rather loose in its organization and has been lashed to the academic year clock and that cycle of funding. So beginning next academic year, we need to move toward becoming a nationally prominent center fueled by external grant funding. So the funding that we were generously awarded after the competitive grant process that was previously described will allow us to organize and advance our research agenda. We'll accomplish this by focusing our attention into research clusters, which are groups of affiliated faculty who share overlapping research interests captured under themes that we've named. We've identified several clusters that will sponsor and to which we will write the center's largest grants, and these are going to generate the center's core productivity. We'll also invite faculty to write individual grants and coordinate networks of external scholars to collaborate on larger projects over a longer duration. Our plan is to support these projects from the moment they're conceived until the moment that they enter the world in the form of books, articles, community engagement, art projects, white papers, policy recommendations, and possibly even patents. At the center of our funding strategy is a grant consultant that we hope to hire who will help us identify, write, and win large grant proposals or large competitive grants to support ambitious individual grant writing projects as well. And in doing so, we hope to accomplish three key objectives. As JMU has ascended to R2, we hope to painlessly ramp up the diversity of projects eligible to count as research productivity across campus, and that can be applied toward promotion and tenure standards in different departments, which supports JMU's first strategic goal. We look forward to welcoming students into innovative knowledge production, which supports JMU's third strategic goal. The second is that we want to become financially independent in a sustainable way so that the center can continue its growth and sit at the table of crucial conversations of our time. Our plan lets us fully tap into public funding, private partnerships, and philanthropic pursuit at the regional, national, and international level. And finally, through this activity, AAAD seeks to bind the entire campus together by achieving true interdisciplinarity. So thank you again for allowing us the opportunity to share our mission.
Good morning. I would like to thank, excuse me, all of you and the Board of Visitors for this opportunity to share my vision on the Center for Innovation in Early Childhood Development. James Madison University was originally founded in 1908 as a teacher training school for women. It is an honor that the first new research center, as our status changed to R2 in the university, is a Center for Innovation in Early Childhood Development housed at the College of Education. The journey began when my childhood dream and imagination came true when I was awarded the largest single-year grant in the history of JMU to pay for 314 children of 3 and 4 years old from marginalized population to have access to 100% free, no cost for family to enroll in high-quality early childhood development centers in our community. By now, I have brought more than 9 grants and over $9 million to JMU and our community. The Center for Innovation in Early Childhood Development, CIECD, has been under production in the College of Education for the past few years. Through different investigations and different research in interdisciplinary areas to create teacher training and educational training for our students and children to create an excellent teacher-scholar model. For example, there are several examples of research such as teacher training in non-traditional students, and teacher training exceptionalities. And also, there are several other examples of the mixed delivery grants and preschool development grants from the state level, national level, and federal level. The center is also supporting the College of Education's potential partnership with the Virginia Department of Criminal Justice Services and Virginia Center for School and Campus Safety in developing the pre-K 5th grade comprehensive school safety curriculum for Virginia's public schools. The vision of the CIECD Center is to create, advocate, and witness for equitable access to high-quality early childhood development experiences and interdisciplinary resources for all children, families, and educators across the world. In order to improve our global perspective, we plan to learn and implement the early childhood perspectives and practices from highest rates of early childhood development and care systems in the world, such as Finland. Therefore, a team from JMU will be traveling to Finland to visit various early childhood centers and finish education evaluation centers and learn from them to bring it back to the center. The CIECD Center had created an interdisciplinary advisory committee that includes faculty across campus with a representative from each college to connect different areas of expertise and promote collaboration across campus. The CIECD will provide opportunities for undergraduate student involvement in research, doctoral students assistantship, graduate student participation, and seed funding for new faculty to initiate their interdisciplinary research and studies. In addition, there is going to be a peer review early childhood development journal that to create and invite national and international experts to share their studies and initiate partnership with JMU experts. The Center for Innovation in Early Childhood Development will promote JMU's mission and vision as a national university to become a globally known pioneer in interdisciplinary early childhood development, research, and teacher education. Thank you again for this opportunity.
Any questions for presenters?
I don't have a question, I just have a comment. I just want to say thank you both. One recurring ask that I've had of the administration is to highlight the amazing research that's being done here. And this is fantastic. I know that us board members get overloaded with this, but this needs to be expanded outside of this room. And we all as ambassadors, I think, could do more to show the research that's occurring here. But thank you both.
Regarding the Center for Innovation in Early Childhood Development, is that connected to what you're building over at the College of Education? That's where it's going to be housed.
The national program at our lab center. Yes.
Oh.
Any other questions? Thank you all very much for joining us. Okay, so that concludes our formal agenda, but before we move into closed session, and John knows me well enough that he's not having me do anything individually, but we do have five board members who are serving in their final meeting. I am not saying they are concluding their term because I want to remind each of you that your term does not end until June 30th, and I will be calling. But in the meantime, all five, which is really a value to the university, but all five of them have served 2 consecutive terms, which is a total of 8 years on the board of dedicated service. This requires not one, but 2 separate governors to appoint this group of 5. So they have unanimously come through both times. They have served as mentors, confidants, leaders. They've provided insight and perspectives. All of them here today, Maria's not here, but all of them here today have served at least once as a committee chair. Several have done more than that. And Deborah also served as vice rector during probably one of the most tumultuous times this campus has seen in decades. They have been active, trusted, and respected voices around the table. So I appreciate that. JMU seems to attract some of the most incredible people, regardless of whether they're alumni or not. And serving on boards like this give me the opportunity to expand my friends. And this has done that as well. So I wanted to thank you. Now. And I just get to be there on next word.
Thank you, Mary Beth. And before we recognize each individual, I just want to echo Mary Beth's comments. It really has been an extraordinary group. I mean, this is really significant volunteer service. The amount of time and effort that all of you have put in is really overwhelming for the betterment of the university and all of our students. And I hope you have felt the impact of your service when you think about these extraordinary students that you've seen, when you think about these great faculty and the work that they're doing. All of that is made possible by your leadership and stewardship of this university, and you've been great partners to work with. So like Mary Beth, we have to hold it together here because this is always a tough moment for us. But I did want to say for the retiring board members, you are now officially members of what's called the Russell Weaver Society. And you will now have a paver with your name and board term placed in the circle right in front of Wilson Hall. So you'll be able to find your name in a very prominent place on campus, and very well deserved. So now I think we're ready to recognize each individual with the certificates. So Mary Beth, you've got the certificates, and we will start with Jeff Grass. So Jeff, if you can come on up. Jeff has served as chair of the audit committee. He served on the academics and student life committee, the executive committee, finance and physical development committee, and most recently has served as the chair of the governance committee and done a tremendous job leading us in that way. Thank you, Jeff, for your service. All right, next is Matt Gray Keeling. Matt, would you come up? And Matt as well has served on a variety of committees, including the advancement committee, the audit committee. He's put in a lot of time, and a lot of people, that's one that they shy away from, and Matt really jumps into it and is very happy. And also most recently has served as chair of the academic excellence committee, a very important committee here. Matt, thank you and congratulations. All right, next is Deborah Tompkins Johnson. Deborah has served as chair of the Academics and Student Life Committee, served on the Advancement Committee, the Audit Committee, Executive Committee, Governance Committee, and as chair now of the Student Affairs Committee, and of course, as you heard, also as vice rector. We might add that Deborah served on the board previously as well as a child prodigy. So and all of the service, Deborah, that you've provided. Congratulations. All right, Craig Welburn, would you come on up? All right, Craig has served as chair of the athletics committee, as you've heard, and served on academics and student life committee, the academic excellence committee, the executive committee, and has served as chair of the advancement and engagement committee. So thank you so much, Craig, for all you've done for the university.
Cool. You guys have anything to say? Any words of wisdom?
I always say. Okay, same old thing. Okay, deep breath. So just an absolute honor to be able to serve in this capacity. Most people know that these to serve on the board of visitors for one of the institutions of higher ed are very coveted positions. So I think we all take it very seriously when we get these appointments. And so that's wonderful, but then you get the real joy of just working with just tremendous people. So, I think about our executive or administrative leadership. It's just, just running institutions, just can't even imagine. So I just appreciate all the collaboration and the conversation that we've had, and just have so much respect for the work that you've done here. I mean, I graduated in 1978, and to come here and on one side to see how what has not changed is how we pour ourselves into our students. But what has changed is just so many ways. You just mentioned the going to the Sun Belt Conference, R2 designation. Those are just two big things that took so much work. And then, I look across from me behind my board colleagues and just see, faculty and administrators. I had the great opportunity, when I served as the co-chair of the task force to talk with some of these people in a closer, more detailed way than you usually get to do as a board member. And so I just learned to have just so much, my respect just grew, exponentially by being able to do that. For my board colleagues, and that extends to all the vice presidents when I mentioned the executive leadership. For my board colleagues, that I have worked with, oh my gosh, just so much respect. Gosh, you're smart, you're compassionate at the same time, and you just get the work done. And for my new colleagues, I've just been enjoying getting to know you and look forward to being able to continue doing that. Russell Weaver Society or some other way I might pop in. You never know. But so those are just things that just come to mind, and I just say, I just keep learning the value of conversation, right? And just that conversation and collaboration. The more that we can do that in the big groups and the small groups, it's just sort of, I guess, my takeaway. I learned some of that just in the last couple of days, day and a half here already. So just as much as we can do that, I think we will just continue to be great stewards of this institution and for the students and for the people who work here. It's just an absolute pleasure.
Here.
That was the hard. Yeah. All right. Anything else? Yeah.
Oh, Jeff. I can't be nearly as eloquent as Deborah, but it has been a true honor to be part of this. It's amazing. It's been 8 years, and it's really incredible. We look back at all the progress that this institution has made under John's leadership and the leadership here. It's exciting. Similarly, kind of went to school here, graduated back in '92. And there's a lot about JMU that is still very much the same in terms of the kind of environment and the special part of JMU that I think it's always a little bit hard for us to articulate is still here, which is hard to do, right? From fostering leadership and growing an institution so much, but it's also continued to grow and develop into a much bigger, more impressive institution as well. And it's just been exciting to be a small part of that. So appreciate it.
Great. It's been a true honor, a real privilege. I love our class of 5, and I'm sorry that Maria isn't here. In my heart for 8 years has been my role as the first member of the LGBTQ community to serve on the Board of Visitors. And I have tried to represent those students and faculty and staff in all of our meetings. And Craig and I went to their Lavender graduation celebration last night. And it is a community of people that inspires me and is gritty and determined, but that faces incredible obstacles in the society that we live in. And so my parting message is I hope that everyone will keep them in their minds and hearts in the years ahead, even if a member of the community isn't around the table. Because they need people in positions of leadership to advocate for them.
I just wanted to extend a thank you. Thank you to the faculty and staff that are here. You wake up each and every day, working to create the future leaders here at this university. And it warms my heart to see Shadi and Xavier, because you guys are the future, Jay. I can't wait to look here years from now to see you sitting at these tables and making these decisions, because the leadership that you guys are showing here is being planted, these seeds are being planted by everyone around here. So each and every person, you made me better. This has been a fun 8 years. And I mean, I think it's been 8 years. Just to be able to grow to see what the university has now become. We have a lot of work to still do, but we'll wake up each and every day to do it. So just thank you. I appreciate the honor.
You all, and as I said, it's been just phenomenal. All right, Mr. Falcon, please take us into closed session.
Madam Rector, pursuant to section 2.2-3711A1 of the Code of Virginia, I move we go into closed session to discuss personnel matters involving promotions, performance, retirements, hiring, resignations, salary adjustments, and status changes of faculty members, university administrators, and appointees. And 2, pursuant to section 2.2-3711A3 of the Code of Virginia, to discuss the acquisition of real property located in Harrisonburg, Virginia, and pursuant to section 2.2-3711A8 of the Code of Virginia, to consult with legal counsel regarding legal advice by counsel.
Is there a second? All those in favor?
Aye.
We'll take 5 minutes. To everyone's comparison. Everybody in session.
Thank you for all you're doing.
This is like.
So we're recording. Travis just has one more thing to do. All right, thank you, Travis. All right, so during the closed session, and I will have to go around the board, the table, during the closed session, the board discussed only matters lawfully exempt from open meeting requirements and only those types of matters identified in the motion for the closed session.
Aye.
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 Aye,
Aye.
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 thank you. All right, we have a couple of motions. It's the John Rothenberger show today, so John.
Okay, I have two motions. One is the first of the Eastover House. Madam Rector, I move the board approve the purchase of the property at 449 Eastover Drive at a price of $279,500.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any conversation? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? So moved.
Second is the quit claim deed. Madam Rector, I move the board approve the quit claim deed to convey JMU's interest in the property at 11352 Sassafras Ridge, Markham, Virginia.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed? John, do you just want to make the motion for the personnel action report as well? While you're at it.
Sure, if you give me something to.
You just have to move to approve.
Move to approve the personnel action report.
Nicely done. Thanks. Any
My
discussion?
grammar good? My grammar?
Sassafras
All right.
particularly.
So I'll make sure my grammar.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Any opposition? All right, that concludes our April 21st to 22nd board meeting. We will convene again at 8:30. If not, I guess a little sooner.
8:15 will be.
8:15 if you want something to nibble on. But we will be out across from Dynamic Aviation. Thank you.
And for those of you that are meeting with the consultants,